Welcome to Philippine Constitution Unlocked. Discover the incredible powers of the president. From commanding the armed forces to ensuring laws are faithfully executed, we break down the authority and the limits of the nation's highest leader both in times of peace and crisis. Presidential powers, commander-in-chief, and beyond. The President of the Philippines has several key powers. Under the Calling Out Power, Section 18, Article 7, the President can summon the armed forces to suppress lawless violence, invasion, or rebellion whenever it becomes necessary. The same section grants the authority to declare martial law and suspend the writ of habeas corpus. Through the ordinance power under Chapter 2, Book 3 of the Administrative Code of 1987, the President may issue executive orders, administrative orders, and proclamations to implement policies and address national concerns. The emergency powers, Section 17, Article 12, allow the President to take over businesses during emergencies when the public interest so requires. Finally, the Take Care Power, Section 17, Article 7, mandates that the President ensures laws are faithfully executed. The Calling Out Power, martial law, and suspension of the writ of habeas corpus are directly tied to the President's Commander-in-Chief authority. The emergency powers, ordinance power, and take care power are broader executive powers that complement the President's responsibilities, but are not exclusive to the Commander-in-Chief role. In the case of David versus Arroyo, GR number 171396, May 3, 2006, the Supreme Court had the opportunity to clarify the limits of the aforementioned powers of the President. The case arose when President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo issued Proclamation number 1017 declaring a state of national emergency amid reports of an alleged coup attempt on February the 24th, 2006. The proclamation called on the Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, to suppress lawless violence, citing her powers as Commander-in-Chief. Immediately, the Office of the President announced the cancellation of all programs and activities related to the 20th anniversary celebration of EDSA People Power 1, and revoked the permits to hold rallies issued earlier by the local governments. Groups of protesters marched from various parts of Metro Manila with the intention of converging at the EDSA Shrine to celebrate the 20th anniversary of People Power. Petitioners Randolph David and Ronald Lamas were arrested without warrants while heading to the event. Members of Kilusang Mayo Uno and Naaflu KMU were dispersed and arrested during a peaceful rally. Meanwhile, the office of the Daily Tribune, represented by petitioner Cacho Olivares, was searched without a warrant. These petitioners subsequently filed cases alleging violations of their constitutional rights. David and Lamas cited violations of their rights to liberty and freedom from arbitrary arrest. KMU and Naaflu KMU alleged violations of their right to peaceful assembly, and Cacho Olivares and the Daily Tribune alleged violations of press freedom and protections against illegal search and seizure. Ruling of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld the core provision of Proclamation number 1017, which declared a state of national emergency, citing Section 18, Article 7 of the Constitution. This provision grants the President, as Commander-in-Chief, the authority to call out the Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, to suppress lawless violence, invasion, or rebellion. The court emphasized that this power is preventive and discretionary, allowing the President to assess the necessity of such measures to maintain peace and order. The court found that President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo had a factual basis for issuing PP 1017. Intelligence reports indicated a conspiracy involving opposition politicians, military factions, and communist insurgents, New People's Army, aimed at destabilizing or overthrowing the government. The planned actions coincided with the anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution, with demonstrations reportedly intended to provoke violence and disrupt public order. Additionally, an attempted withdrawal of support by Brigadier General Danilo Lim and certain military factions further indicated a credible threat to national security, reinforcing the President's justification for calling out the AFP to maintain law and order. However, the court invalidated certain provisions of Proclamation 1017 for exceeding constitutional limits. The following discussion shows the limitations of the powers of the President. 1. Calling out power. The President, as Commander-in-Chief, has the authority to call out the armed forces to prevent or suppress lawless violence, invasion, or rebellion whenever it becomes necessary. This power is meant to address specific threats to public order, but is limited to these scenarios and must not infringe on constitutional rights. In the case of Proclamation Number 1017, the Supreme Court upheld the President's use of the calling out power as constitutional. However, the implementation of the proclamation, such as the warrantless arrests of Randolph David, Ronald Lamas, and members of KMU and NAFLU KMU during peaceful assemblies, as well as the suppression of their right to peaceful assembly, was found to have violated Sections 1 and 4, Article 3 of the Constitution. The court highlighted that peaceful assemblies cannot be arbitrarily restricted without a clear and present danger. 2. Martial law and suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. The President may declare martial law or suspend the writ of habeas corpus in cases of invasion or rebellion, but only when public safety requires it. These powers come with strict constitutional limits. They are valid for a maximum of 60 days without congressional approval, are subject to review by Congress and the Supreme Court, and cannot suspend the operation of the Constitution or civil institutions. In this case, martial law was not invoked, but some actions taken under Proclamation Number 1017, such as arrests and media control, mirrored martial law powers and were declared unconstitutional as they exceeded the calling out authority. Third, ordinance power. The President may issue executive orders, administrative orders, and proclamations to ensure the execution of laws and manage government operations. However, this power does not allow the President to create laws or decrees which are within the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled that the provision in Proclamation Number 1017 implying that the President could issue decrees was unconstitutional, as it overstepped the boundaries of the ordinance power. 4. Emergency powers. During a national emergency, the President may temporarily take over or direct the operations of privately owned public utilities or businesses affected with public interest, but only with prior authorization from Congress. In this case, the Supreme Court struck down the portion of Proclamation Number 1017 that invoked this power without congressional authorization, affirming that unilateral action by the President in such matters is unconstitutional. The requirement for the congressional authorization arises from Section 23, Subsection 2, Article 6. It states, "In times of war or other national emergency, the Congress may, by law, authorize the President for a limited period and subject to such restrictions as it may prescribe, to exercise powers necessary and proper to carry out a declared national policy. Unless sooner withdrawn by resolution of the Congress, such powers shall cease upon the next adjournment thereof. Without such legislative authorization, the President cannot unilaterally assume emergency powers, including taking over private entities." 5. The President's take care power. This provision obliges the President to ensure that the laws be faithfully executed, which includes directing law enforcement agencies to maintain peace and order. However, Proclamation 1017's extraneous provision giving the President express or implied power to direct the armed forces to enforce obedience to all laws, even those not related to lawless violence, are ultra vires and unconstitutional. Moreover, this power is bound by the limits of existing laws and constitutional safeguards, meaning it cannot justify actions that overstep legal boundaries or infringe upon civil liberties. In the case of Proclamation Number 1017, the Supreme Court ruled that actions such as warrantless arrests, searches, and restrictions on media went beyond the scope of this power, rendering them unconstitutional. Specifically, the warrantless raid and seizure at the Daily Tribune offices violated the constitutional right against unreasonable searches and seizures under Section 2, Article 3, and the freedom of the press under Section 4, Article 3. The police's actions, including the stationing of officers at the publication's premises and issuing warnings to media, were deemed arbitrary and amounted to prior restraint, an impermissible restriction on press freedom. The court clarified that such acts exceeded the President's take-care authority and were not justified by the declaration of a state of national emergency under Proclamation 1017. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's empower Filipinos one click at a time.